Getting soft shots is all too common in wildlife photography, and if you get some yourself, you aren't alone. Here are some of the most common reasons why I find photographers getting soft shots, and at the end of this video, I'll show you some editing tricks you can do to turn a photo like this into this. The first thing I often see with wildlife photographers is that their shutter speeds are pushed way too low. Often people look over their shutter speed unless their images wind up being extremely blurry, due to the belief that unless you're streaking, it's not the shutter speed's fault. However, a slightly low shutter speed can allow for much more tiny micro jitters to be captured and leading to ever so slightly soft shots that don't look like they're streaking completely. To fix this, it depends on the relationship between you and your subject distance and how fast the subject is moving. But in a simplified sense, if the subject is close by, I'll shoot at a minimum of 1/500th of a second with the still subject and 1/2500th of a second with the moving subject. However, if the subject is further away, I'll shoot at a minimum of 1/250th of a second with the still subject and 1/1300th of a second with the moving subject. These are very general settings that may not always be accurate depending on your situation and camera model, but they're a good point to get started from. Speaking of gear, most lenses are not optimally sharp at their lowest f-stop number. Especially with more affordable lenses, if you zoom in as far as possible and open up your aperture as wide as possible, you'll get slightly softer shots than if you were to just stop up one value. For example, with the very popular Sigma 150 to 600mm contemporary, if you shoot at 600mm at 6.3, you'll find your photographs wind up slightly soft as compared to 7.1. For this reason, test out your lens in a controlled environment and find out what the lowest possible f-stop number is that is optimally sharp to get the most out of your lens. High ISO can also lead to soft shots as well. For some reason, it seems to be a popular thing to say that ISO doesn't affect the sharpness or noise of your image, but this simply isn't true. While yes, other aspects may affect your sharpness or noise levels even more than ISO, an ISO value further away from your camera's native base ISO will cause a more noisy and softer image. Here's an example of two images shot in a controlled setting with the same exposure and locked off on a tripod. What I will say is this: if your aperture and shutter speed aren't set properly, those settings will likely cause much softer of an image than your ISO will. However, when you can afford it, keep your ISO value lower to avoid unnecessarily soft images. You won't believe how common it is, especially on older cameras, to ever so slightly miss focus. Missing focus is especially common on cheaper and older cameras due to a less accurate autofocus. In wildlife photography, you'll almost always want to find yourself tacking focus on the eye of the subject. In less advanced autofocus systems, it's easy to find the autofocus tacking focus on the back of the animal, for example, or maybe the tail, leading to an ever so slightly missed focus and causing a suboptimal sharpness in the subject. Techniques to keep your camera body stable are also a game changer in regards to sharpness. Conveniently, most camera bodies made nowadays have an image stabilization built in to the camera body or the lens, and this can help wonders with stabilizing micro jitters in your movement. However, you can also do a couple of things with your camera body to help stabilize your shots. Number one, you can keep your elbows tucked into your body in order to stabilize your arms. Number two, finding a place to rest your elbows with lying in prone or crouching down can take all the weight off and act as a nice way to balance your arms, and therefore reducing shake. When crouching, I almost always rest my elbows on my knees to stabilize my shots, or when in prone, I'm almost always resting my elbows on the ground to stabilize my shots as well. Number three, shoot in a burst mode to help limit the sudden jolts you give your camera as you press in your shutter button. While you can do your best to press the shutter button softer, you'll often find that when you first press it, you'll shake your camera quite a bit downwards due to the force that you're applying. If you're in a burst mode and able to hold down your shots, usually by the second or third image in the sequence, you'll be able to be much more steady and therefore wind up getting a sharper shot. Beyond this, burst mode is also just a really useful feature to give you extra insurance about landing a sharp shot in a moment, since you'll have a wider variety of images to choose from. Now, when you've messed up a photo in the moment and you're wishing you could go back and retake the shot, but you just simply can't, there are a few things you can do to try and fix it in post-production. The best solution I've found up until this day is Topaz Photo AI. Topaz Photo AI is a sharpening and denoising program that can be an absolute lifesaver if you take a soft shot. So I got Topaz Photo AI pulled up here, and what we're going to do is browse for some images and pull up this image first of a red-tailed hawk that I got at the Winter Wings Festival, oldest birding festival on the West Coast that I got to teach at this past weekend. And this image here wound up being a little bit soft on the hawk because of the fact that I was using a windshield in this foreground here. So let me zoom out, and you can see I was using a windshield as foreground to help blur this image into the very overexposed sky in the background as well to create a really nice high key image and total. But because of that, when we zoom in, you'll notice that the hawk got a little bit soft. So what we're going to do is do a side-by-side comparison before and after, and you can see that it's already saying to remove noise, which that's all fine and great as well. But really what we want to do here is sharpen the image. And you'll notice when I turn that on in standard, it already makes it look so much sharper. It really brings out that feather detail quite a lot, and I like how those results look. You can also change it over to lens blur, which will do it a little bit more dramatically. In this situation, I think it's a little bit overdone because the focus wasn't too harshly missed here. So I'm going to keep it in standard. You can also adjust the strength. So if we pull it up, for example, brings out the sharpness even a little bit more, which I like in this scenario. Or you can adjust the clarity, which will pull it bring up the clarity a little bit, make it pop a little bit more, give it a little bit more texture. I love that. And it'll detect the subject only. You can see in the top right corner, we have the subject detect on, and so it's only sharpening the subject itself. Now, just to back out a little bit and show you one other thing, is when we get this sharpened right here, I didn't quite like how you'll notice there's a little bit of sharpness in some of the feathers down here that I'd prefer that didn't exist there. So if we wanted to, we could refine the subject, and I won't do it all on camera because it takes a while, but you can actually mask out all the different parts with the smart mask and apply done, and then it won't sharpen those spots specifically. So this image looks really good. I'll be including the files of these images in a Google Drive link in the description below. That way you guys can check it out, blow it up fully on your computer screen and see the results there. It is a little compressed on YouTube, so you might not be able to see the results that well, and that's why I want to do that for you guys. But let's pull up one other image before we end it out. That way you guys can see the results of that. So we have this pygmy owl image here, which some of you guys may have seen before if you follow the channel. And this image is amazing how it showcases the sharpness effect on Topaz Photo AI. So you'll notice as soon as I sharpen and remove that noise there, man, look at that difference before and after. Specifically, you're getting so much detail in all these parts of the bird, but those eyes pop out so much more than they did before. And because of that, it really helps to sell this image, keep the focal point on the eyes of this amazing pygmy owl. And wow, what an image it winds up being. So again, I'll include all of these images in a Google Drive folder in the description below for you guys to download and check out yourself. If you're interested in purchasing Topaz Photo AI, I'd really appreciate it if you check out my affiliate link in the description below, as it will help me with my wildlife photography career without costing you an extra penny. If you want to see a more in-depth video on how the program is and how it works, check out this video here in the end screen, and I'll see you guys next time.